We're in the last section of the book of Romans, and that is service. And Paul said in our last study, starting this section in verse 1, I beseech you therefore, brethren, by the mercies of God, that you present your bodies a living sacrifice, holy and acceptable unto God, which is your reasonable service. It's what you ought to do. And he doesn't stop there, because he moves on into the next verse. And when I began studying this chapter, the Lord stopped me at verse 1, and he wouldn't let me go any further than verse 1. And so we made it through verse 1, and now the Lord has stopped me again at verse 2. And so we're not going to go past verse 2 today. How many of you know the first word of the gospel? Everybody's thinking, trick question? I heard a few of you say it is repent. Repent. In the Greek, it's metaneo. It's a compound word. Meta meaning after, and neo meaning thought. To repent is an afterthought. It literally means to change your mind. And that changing of the mind doesn't happen one time at salvation. Repentance is an ongoing, continual process, or it should be, in the life of the believer. The life of the believer should be one of constant changing of the mind. Now, for a long time, I didn't like the subject of the mind, because I don't think I've got a great one. But it is amazing what God has done in formatting this gray matter. The book of Proverbs tells us something interesting. It says, as a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. So if you wonder why you're worried all the time, it's because you're thinking worryful thoughts. If you wonder why you're angry and frustrated all the time, it's because you're focusing on angry and frustrating things. If you wonder why you're not experiencing all that God has for you as a believer, it's because you're not thinking like a son or a daughter. We see God miraculously deliver Israel from Egypt after 400 years of bondage. And we see them struggle. That struggle lasts for 40 years. Because although the Lord got Israel out of Egypt, Israel never got Egypt out of themselves. God brought an enslaved people out of bondage, and they lived for 40 years enslaved. Over the last couple years, I've become very interested in neuroscience. Not that I know anything about it, but I like reading it and going, wow, that's a neat word. But I have learned a few things about neuroscience and the mind and the brain, and how science is catching up with the Bible. It really is. Because the verse that we're going to look at today explains what neuroscience calls neuroplasticity, or brain plasticity. For years and years and years and years and years and years, scientists thought that the brain was concrete. It was immovable. It was unchangeable. But they're learning it's not the case. People with traumatic brain injuries, people who have experienced strokes. It's amazing what the brain can do. We've got neural networks running in our brain. grooves, if you will, ruts. Like if you ride on a dirt road, I like riding my motorcycle on a dirt road, and you got to get up enough speed because there's ruts and you're going to fall in that rut, and you better hold on because you're in that rut. If you try to come out of that rut, and in our brain we have those grooves, those networks, those pathways. I'll describe it this way. You have default settings in your brain. When you buy a computer or you buy a phone, somebody that put it together decided what you needed, right? What little notification sounds you were going to have and what the background was on the computer and what little apps you need. I went and deleted tons and tons of those things. I would never use those things. They just get in the way of me finding the 3 that I use, you know. And so what you have to do is you have to download different apps, different default settings. And the good news this morning, by God's grace, that can take place. Some of you have been struggling with habits for years. Some of you have been struggling with attitudes for years, fears, insecurities, anxieties, depression. You make excuses for them. You say things like, well, my mom was a worrier and I'm a worrier. You say things like, well, my dad was an angry man, so I'm an angry man. You say things like the people said to Ezekiel, the fathers have eaten sour grapes and the children's teeth are set on edge. And the Lord told Ezekiel to tell the people, don't say that anymore. Because science tells you you are the way you are and you can't change. God says otherwise. He says otherwise. And if you're going to serve him in any capacity, not only are you going to have to present your body as a living sacrifice, or you're going to have to lay your life down and fully surrender to him, but you're going to have to change your stinking thinking. You really are. And see, the problem with the church is the church should be filled with caterpillars in the process of becoming butterflies. But it's not. The church should be filled with caterpillars becoming butterflies, but it's filled with chameleons. Whatever background you put it in front of, that's what it looks like. You move it over here to this one and that's what it looks like. It's just a chameleon. It just changes colors from moment to moment, from minute to minute. And that's why the church doesn't look like the church used to look like. That's why the church doesn't talk like it used to talk. That's why the church doesn't worship like she used to worship. That's why the church doesn't have the victory she used to have. Because her mind is unchanged. So in Romans chapter 12, verse 2, Paul says, be not conformed to this world, but be ye transformed by the renewing of your minds, that ye may prove what is that good and acceptable and perfect will of God. I want to say that again. And be not conformed to this world, but be ye transformed by the renewing of your minds, that you may prove what is that good and acceptable and perfect will of God. Be not conformed. I can have a conversation with each one of you, a political conversation, and within 5 minutes I can tell you what news channel you listen to. I can tell you what news channel you listen to. Just by a short conversation. Be not conformed to this world. Be not conformed. That word conform there literally means to be squeezed into a mold. I'm amazed. I'm amazed at how influenced we are. I'm amazed. I'm amazed as I've watched the church since I was 15 years old latch on to every little thing that has come along. So many people out there don't come in here because they don't see much difference in here than they see out there. Be not conformed to this world. How many of you believe that Jesus stood out? Jesus stood out. Now, he looked like everybody else because the scripture tells us oftentimes he would slip into the crowd and just slip away. So we know he didn't wear a fancy robe and all that. But if you were around him, if you heard him speak, as a matter of fact, the religious leaders sent temple guards to go fetch him, to get him. And they came back empty-handed and they said, "Where is he? Why didn't you bring him?" And they said, "Never a man spake like this man." We have never, ever heard anybody speak like this guy speaks. He is so different. He's so different. Matter of fact, the religious leaders even asked him, how do you know letters having never been taught? We've never seen you in any of our schools, and yet, be not conformed to this world. Some of us in this room are no more than parrots. If you listen to Fox News or Newsmax, I could name some names. You know what? Why not? Let's just do it. Hannity or some of these other guys, you listen to them and they give you your little talking points. Pop, 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 and then you spend the rest of the week. Pop, 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 pop. Those of you who might listen to CNN or MSNBC, you see, some like this side, some like that side, and that's what I'm saying. You can have that conversation, you can tell. But they give you your little talking points, and you go, and that's what you talk about all week. But the Lord says, if you're going to serve me, don't be conformed to this world. So you don't get your marching orders from these individuals who are telling you, this is what you're supposed to be worried about right now. These are the things you're supposed to be afraid of right now. These are the things that you're supposed to be angry about right now. These are the things that matter right now. And all of it is propaganda. It is. I know I'm making some of you mad. He's like, Gardner. I'm not doing it on purpose. It's propaganda. Be not conformed to this world. Don't let the world squeeze you into its mold so that you think like they think. That pattern of thinking, that pattern of behavior. We shouldn't be reacting to the world. We should be responding to the Lord. Go to the doctor gives you some medication. Next thing you know, you take it. 4 hours later, you break out in a rash all over your body. Oh, you call the doctor, and you say, "Doc, I don't know what's wrong with me. I got bumps and whelps all over me after taking this medicine." The doctor says, "Stop taking the medicine. You're having a reaction." You're having a reaction, he says. So he gives you another prescription. You take that prescription, and your symptoms start going away. And the doctor says, "That's good. You are responding to the medication." So the world is the rash. You don't want to react to that. You don't want a reaction to that. You want to respond to the Lord. You get up in the morning and the world tells you, "Ooh, ah, ah." No, no. Be not conformed to this world. Be not. That is in the present tense, which means it's a continual prohibition. Never stop not being conformed. That's what it literally means in the Greek. Be not conformed to this world. As a matter of fact, we've studied chapter 8 of Romans, didn't we? And we were predestined to be conformed into the image of his Son. Not to the world, but to the Son. God is not trying to make you worldly this morning. He's not trying to get you to fit in with the crowd. You remember Peter? I will never deny you. Fleshly confidence. Next time we see him, falling asleep when he should have been praying. The next time we see him, following from afar. And the next time we see him, he's at the crackle of the enemy's fire, trying to be just like them, saying, I don't know that man. Be not conformed to this world. You remember Lot? Abraham says, we're brothers. Let's have no dissension between us. I tell you what, you go and pick whatever direction you want to go in, and I will take whatever's left. And the Bible says that Lot lifted up his eyes, and he saw the well-watered plains of Sodom. It was like Eden. The next time we see him, he's pitching his tent toward Sodom. The next time we see him, he's in the gate at Sodom. The next time we see him, the angels are dragging him out of Sodom before he destroys it, begging to go to Zoar. It's just a little city. I don't want to go to the mountains, Lord. Just this little city. Be not conformed to this world. Don't let it squeeze you into its mold. You shouldn't sound like the world. You shouldn't look like the world. You shouldn't think like the world. You shouldn't walk like the world. You shouldn't serve like the world. You shouldn't live like the world. Be not conformed to this world. The world, that word there is age. And you know what, in Galatians chapter 1, we're told that Christ came to deliver us from this present evil world. If Jesus died to set me free from this world, why am I chasing it? And it's like that proverbial dog, right, that's chasing the car. What am I going to do when I catch it? Some of us have caught it. And some of us have the scars to prove it. And some of us now sit quietly on the porch and let the car pass by. We'll watch other fools take their turn. Been there, done that, not doing it again. Be not conformed. Don't be squeezed into its mold. When we get to James chapter 1, James says, don't be spotted by the world. I'm to live so separate from this world, I don't even get any of it on me. Unspotted from the world. You ought to be able to inspect me like those military guys. I can't. They stand at attention and they're inspected. They're looking for any little flaw, anything out of order. Unspotted from the world. Because Paul says that no soldier that wants to please his commanding officer entangles himself with the things of this life and this world. But he has one goal, that's to please the one he's serving. So we're not to be conformed to the world. We're not to be spotted by the world. In James chapter 4, we're told that we shouldn't be a friend of this world. Because whoever's a friend of the world is the enemy. That's harsh language, church. I mean, we can't read that and not stop for a moment and go, whoa, wait a minute. Did I read that right? Friend of the world, enemy of God. No middle ground. Oh, well, Gordon, come on. I can do these things on Friday night and this on Saturday night, and I can show up on Sunday morning. You can, and many do. But you will not be the friend of God if you're a friend of the world. You can't be both. You must make a choice. And I'm here to tell you this morning, being a friend of God far exceeds anything you're going to find out there. Ask Peter. He wept bitterly when he heard the rooster crow. Ask Lot when his wife's a pillar of salt and his 2 daughters have been so perverted by what's taking place in the world that he lived in. His whole future heritage is now out of line. Be not conformed to this world. In 1 John chapter 4, we're told, love not the world, neither the things that are in the world. For all that is in the world, the lust of the flesh, the lust of the eyes, and the pride of life is of the world. And John says it's passing away. The fashion of this world is passing away. Why would we go after something that's fading? Why would we go after something that's fading? Why do we let the world tell us how we're supposed to think and what's pretty and what's not pretty? And what's skinny and what's not skinny? And what's in style and what's not in style? You're like, But we do it, don't we? We're so easily influenced. So easily influenced. I can remember songs that used to make me shake. I was gonna say shake my booty, but I didn't know if I could say that, but I guess I can. Songs that used to make me do that. Even today, if I hear it in a distance, I remember the words. And if I'm not, hey, stop it, Gordon. That's some of you thinking, there's nothing wrong with that. That's between you and God. Be not conformed to this world. Those old grooves, those old paths. It's easy to fall in that rut, and you can't get out of it. Be not conformed to this world. Don't be conformed to the thing that Christ has delivered you from. Why go in? There's nothing out there. But, he says, be transformed. Don't be conformed, but be transformed. That in the Greek is metamorpho. It's where we get our word metamorphosis. It's a complete and total change. It's a complete transformation. It literally means to be transfigured, which is what Matthew and Mark tell us about Jesus when he goes up to the mountain. And there he was before the disciples, and he began to radiate his glory. Wow. Why would I want to shake in the darkness, sneak in the darkness, hide in the darkness, when I could radiate the glory of God? Why would I do that when I can radiate the glory of God? Why would I try to fit in out there instead of letting him fit in here? And not just fit, but fill. But be ye transformed. That's your wake-up call this morning. It's time to be transformed. It's time to be transformed. Completely and totally changed. Well, Gordon, how? I've been saved for 14 years. By the renewing of your mind. By the renewing of your mind. Now, what Paul is describing to us is very simple. Very simple. But let me just give you a disclaimer this morning. It takes time. And some have said, Lord, Change me. Well, it didn't happen. Be transformed. That is also continuous, constant. It's not show up on Sunday and say, Lord, make me what you want me to be. I'll be back next Sunday. No. It's, Lord, make me what you want to be. 5 minutes later, Lord, make me what you want me to be. 5 minutes later. I remember the night that I got saved. I walked out of the room. The guy who prayed with me to accept the Lord, he walked up to me and he said, look, you've been living the life that you've been living now for 15 long years. He didn't say that. I was 15 years old. He said, if you think about living a whole new life at this moment, it's going to be overwhelming to you. It's going to be overwhelming to think, okay, for the rest of my life, I've got to live for the Lord. So here's what he said. He said, I want you to take the next 5 minutes. And that's all you think about. Lord, I'm yours for the next 5 minutes. I want to worship you. I want to praise you. I want to serve you. I want to live my life for you for 5 minutes. And he says, when you get to the end of that 5 minutes, you say, Lord, I'm giving you 5 more minutes. And he says, if you'll keep doing that, the next thing you know, that 5 minutes will go to 10 minutes. And that 10 minutes will go to 20 minutes. And that 20 minutes will go to 30 minutes. And he says, next thing you know, you'll stop keeping track of time because you'll be living for the Lord 24/7. Be not conformed to this world, but be ye transformed, changed by the renewing of your mind. A complete restoration, a complete change of mind needs to take place. And that takes time. And we live in a day and an age of instant everything. But I want to challenge you this morning. I really do. I want you to hear me. Because many of you, like me, have struggled for years with things in your life. Like I said, insecurities, anxieties, attitudes, anger, unforgiveness, bitterness. Maybe you got daddy issues and you haven't dealt with them, or someone hurt you deeply and you haven't forgiven them, whatever it might be. Or your parents told you were never going to be anything, or you had an uncle tell you were never going to be anything, or maybe you had a teacher tell you you're nothing but a loser. Why can't you keep up with the rest of the class? Or whatever it might be. And you've got what the Bible calls in 2 Corinthians chapter 10, strongholds in your life. Strongholds. That's a hold that holds you strong, right? It's a stronghold. You're trapped inside this way of thinking. I'm this, this is the way that I am, and this is the way it's going to be. Strongholds. And if somebody tries to talk to you or encourage you or change you, you're going to get mad at them. It's your little golden calf. The Bible calls it a stronghold. But in that same verse, 2 Corinthians 10:4, Paul says, though we live in the flesh, we don't war after the flesh. The weapons of our warfare are not carnal, but mighty through God to the pulling down of strongholds, casting down imaginations and every high thing that exalts itself against the knowledge of God, and bringing into captivity, listen, every thought into the obedience of Christ. Every thought into the obedience of Christ. You say, well, Gordon, that sounds like a lot. Well, you know, the Lord says that we're to love him with all of our mind. We say, love the Lord with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength, and we lump them together, and sometimes we don't get past heart in our thinking. Love the Lord with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength, and heart echoes, and that's what you think. But we're to love him with our mind. What do you think about when you're driving 25 minutes to work in the morning? Well, I'm thinking about what they told me to think about on the news. Or I'm thinking about how I hate my job and I've been passed over for this promotion. I don't want to go here, and it's, You're thinking. You're thinking. What you think matters. As he thinketh in his heart, so is he. Now, I can't reveal these things to you this morning. It is my prayer that as we study this verse, that the Holy Spirit will start touching some things in your life, revealing to you some problems. I've shared with you through the last maybe 5 years of my life, thanks living changed my life because I was an Eeyore. I lived every day of my life as an Eeyore. If it was wrong, I could find it. And if I couldn't, I would make it up. It's true. Ask my wife, ask my kids. I'd make up something to get upset about. It runs in my family. I can remember my father creating a problem every time there was a family get-together. He had insecurities in his own life. He had his own struggles that he was dealing with. Those things made him a miserable guy. And so he didn't want to get around the people that loved him because those people reminded him of his faults and of his past and all those other things. He didn't want to deal with those things. So what did he do? He had a default groove of thinking, ruts in his life. He would blow it up so he could blame it on one of the people in the household, get in his car and leave. And some of us in this room are doing similar type things. We avoid certain things because we're challenged or we're afraid or we're insecure. Or we say, I can't do that. I can't do that. I know the Lord wants me to do that, but I can't do that. You need to take that thought captive into the obedience of Christ because you are not loving God with that thought. I can't do that. I can't do that. I can't do that. And here's what you do. You replace it. This is neuroplasticity. You replace it. Science has proven what God said is true all along. Philippians 4:13. I can do all things through Christ, which strengtheneth me. And if you've got to quote that verse 1,000,000 times today, you do it. As a matter of fact, your pastor, I've had people say, well, Gordon, you know a lot of verses. You know how I learned most of them? What I'm talking to you about this morning. Most of the verses I know by heart are verses that I have labored in God's presence and in meditation and in prayer day after day after day, moment after moment after moment, minute after minute after minute. Taking a thought captive and replacing it with what God says. I'm not thinking that. Nope, this is what God says. I'm agreeing with what God says. That's how you do it. And here's the good news. The verses that I'm remembering now aren't the ones that I've already remembered. Which means God has set me free from some stuff. God has redirected some grooves in my brain. I've got new default settings. One of my default settings used to be anger. That was my default reaction to anything that didn't go the way I wanted it to. Whatever, and it got bad, whatever it was. I wanted to be left alone and watch TV. So the kid comes in. Hey, Dad, what? Default setting. And it's his fault, by the way. It's not my fault, right? I'm not an angry man. My child should just know that when I'm watching TV, leave Daddy alone. Because Daddy's doing what Daddy wants to do. Chapter and verse on that, Gordon. Let's do that. Let's do that. Let's take that thought captive. Fathers, provoke not your children to wrath. Fathers, provoke not your children to anger, lest they be discouraged. Wait a minute. What? Can't you see I'm watching my show? Lest they be discouraged. It's time for a change. It's time for a change. You see how that works? You see how that works? I've talked to guys who say, yeah, I got this problem. I look out and I see her and I see her and I see her. It's time for a change. Treat older women as mothers, younger women as sisters. It's time for a change. Ye have heard that it hath been said of them of old time, thou shalt not commit adultery, but I say unto you, whosoever looketh upon a woman to lust after her hath committed adultery with her already in his heart. It's time for a change. Take this thought captive into the obedience of Christ. Philippians 4:8, I believe it is. Finally, brethren, whatsoever things are true, whatsoever things are honest, whatsoever things are just, whatsoever things are noble, whatsoever things are of good report, if there be any virtue, if there be any praise, think on these things. You think on these things. And that's how your mind is renewed. Wednesday night we talked about confession. Confession is agreeing with God. And this is pretty much what we're talking about here with meditation. I'm learning to agree with God. My mindset, I'm having a shift in my thinking so I see it the way God sees it, not the way that I see it, or the way that you see it, or the way that they see it. Because it doesn't matter what I think, what you think, what they think. The only thing that matters is what does He say? So, honey, will you take out the trash now? And Jacob served 7 years for Rachel, and they seemed unto him but a few days for the love that he had unto her. Oh. You see, be not conformed to this world, but be ye transformed by the renewing of your mind. How these verses will change your mind and change your heart. See, we can't change our heart, but God can. But we can change our mind, or at least we can do the steps that God has put in front of us so that that process can take place. And it's time for every one of you to start doing what I'm talking about. Where do I start, Gordon? Wherever you want. What's the biggest problem or interruption in your life right now? What is the biggest thing this morning that's keeping you back from being where you ought to be with the Lord? Well, Gordon, I don't know, I struggle with doubt. I mean, I know God is true. I know His Word is true, but I just have all these doubtful thoughts in my head, and sometimes it's hard to distinguish between whether they're my thoughts or maybe, I don't know. All right, well, let's start there. Proverbs 3, 5 and 6. Trust in the Lord with all thine heart. Lean not to thine own understanding. In all thy ways acknowledge Him, and He will direct your paths. John chapter 20. Thomas, be not faithless, but believing. Romans 10. Faith cometh by hearing, and hearing by the Word. You're struggling with doubt? Get in the Word. It's that simple. But it's going to take time. It's going to mean that you people are going to have to start carrying one of these around with you. This is the Bible, for just in case there's anyone. This is the Bible. When I got saved, I carried this to school. I had a teacher one time. Had a history teacher one time. I finished all my classwork. I'm sitting there at my desk and I'm reading my Bible. She walks up to me and she says, "Don't you know there's a difference between, or a separation of church and state?" I look up to her and I said, "Yes, ma'am, I do." And went right back to reading my Bible. It takes time. You have to immerse yourself in God's Word. Now, you can keep thinking the way you're thinking. What we're talking about this morning, you don't have to do. I want to encourage you to do it because I have seen drastic changes in my life. Drastic changes. I mean, night and day, caterpillar, butterfly changes in my life. And it's God's Word. It's the Holy Spirit renewing me, right? Renewing me in the spirit of my mind. Ephesians 4 says. Transforming the way that I think, the way that I see situations, the way that I react to certain things or respond to things. I'm not doing the same things. I don't feel the same things. Do you know that the majority of people, neuroscience tells us, most of their decisions, 90% of every decision most people make is based on feelings. I don't feel like worshiping today. How many songs are they going to do? Gordon just goes on and on and on and on. And the person standing next to that person is just engrossed in the presence of God. They're enjoying the victory. While that person is going, you take your pick. Right? If most of your friends lied to you as much as your emotions do, you would never listen to anything that they say. Think about that. if your friends, if your circle lied to you as much as your emotions and feelings do, you would never listen to them. And yet, I don't feel like reading my Bible. I don't feel saved. I feel sad. I just don't feel good. Be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Do you know that Isaiah tells us that Jesus was a man of sorrow and acquainted with grief? And yet Hebrews tells us that he was anointed with the joy of gladness above his brethren. Which is it, Lord? Yes. That's why we're told to rejoice evermore. Yeah, but what if I don't feel? Evermore. Because, newsflash, it's not about your feelings. It's about the truth. I am, right this moment, what God says I am. I might not look like it. I might not feel like it. There may be times I don't act like it. But I am what he says I am. And half of the problem with the church is an identity crisis. They're behaving like something that God has already saved them from. Be not conformed to this world, but be ye transformed by the renewing of your mind. He shall be like a tree planted by rivers of water. Why? Because he meditates, he delights in the law of the Lord day and night. All day long. I'm not going to ask for a show of hands, but every one of you in this room right now should have a current memory verse that you're working on. And let me just answer for some of you right now. Old people don't have the memory they used to have, Gordon. Take every thought captive, especially that one. Because the enemy has convinced a lot of senior saints you can't memorize Scripture. That is not true, because I know some who are still memorizing them, encouraging me to do even more. Staying immersed in the Word. Your mind is changed. It is transformed. I'll give you another quick example. Expectations. God helped me with this whole thing of anger. A couple of years back, I was standing right there on the front row, worshiping the Lord, just seeking Him and praying, pouring out my heart, thankful that He had helped me with this whole anger issue, but I was still on edge. I still stayed frustrated most of the time. I'm not blurting out or acting out, but just like a chip on my shoulder, just kind of like, and I'm just, Lord, what is wrong with me? Continue your work in me. Do what you need to do in me. My heart is open, Lord. I'm inviting you to deal with this in my life. And the Lord reminded me of Psalm 62:5. He gave me one verse. I didn't worship the rest of the worship night, I must confess. Well, I guess it is worship, because I was thinking on the Scripture. But I opened my Bible. Sometimes you'll see me do that. I just grab my Bible and I'm, okay, what? 62:5. Oh, wow. My soul, wait thou only upon God, for my expectation is from Him. And I said, Lord, that's it. That's the key that unlocked a new life for me. Because although God had dealt with my heart on anger, I was sharing with somebody Wednesday night, I was so frustrated with myself about anger. I said, Lord, I'm going to start in Genesis chapter 1 and I'm going to go to Revelation 21 and I'm going to study everything you've got to say about anger. I got to Genesis chapter 4 and God set me free. He did. I mean, I kept looking at other verses, but He set me free in chapter 4. Set me free. But expectations. I expect you to react a certain way. I expect you to say certain things. I expect red lights to be green at certain times. I expect people in front of me to drive at certain speeds. I have all these expectations in my life. And I live my life with these expectations. And nothing seems to go the way I want it to go. And I'm having a hard time wrestling with this idea that I'm not God. You say, well, Gordon, did you really think you were God? Not consciously, but subconsciously, I think so. And I think I could point a finger in here and probably hit a few of you who think the same thing. Because you want your kids to do just what you want your kids to do. You want your spouse to do just what you want your spouse to do. You want your dog to do just what you want your dog to do. You want your boss to do just what you want your boss to do. You want everything to be just the way you want it. And when it's not the way you want it, and you live that way, and you're full of stress, and you're sick, and your blood pressure's up, and your digestion is all whacked out, you can't sleep at night, and all these things are effects of the way you're thinking in your head. You're not thinking the way that Jesus thinks. You're not thinking the way the Holy Spirit thinks. You're not thinking the way the Father thinks. You're thinking the way the world thinks. And so I said, Lord, I'm asking you right now to help me to live the rest of my life with no expectations. And I'm going to be honest with you, that was terrifying. It was terrifying for me to pray that prayer. No expectations, Lord. You're my expectation. I wake up every day and I'm looking to you. Doesn't matter what the weather is, I'm looking to you. Doesn't matter what my wife does, I'm looking to you. Doesn't matter what my kids do, I'm looking to you. If the church is full, I'm looking to you. If the church is empty, I'm looking to you. If the offering box is full, I'm looking to you. If the offering box is empty, I'm looking to you. If I'm behind the slowest person in Pensacola, Florida, I'm looking to you. If I hit every red light in Pensacola on the way that I'm to where I'm going and I'm already late, I'm looking to you. You're my expectation. I'm going to stop trying to mentally go places that I cannot go, change things and make things happen that I cannot make. Don't look at me like I'm the only crazy person in this room. Y'all can do that if you want. I already know. I am not the only one. Be not conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Jesus is wanting to get into these areas of our life, and we think that there's this little category that's spiritual, and taking out the trash and washing dishes, and changing diapers and changing tires on the side of the road, and those things aren't spiritual. But it's all part of what he's doing in your life. Your struggles, your weaknesses, your insecurities, your fears, your faults, your failures, your struggles, all of those things are things that he's using or wanting to use to draw you closer to him. And you need to learn to take these thoughts captive. And say, Lord, I want to love you with my mind. With every thought that I think, I want to love you. I want it to be an act of worship to you. And in order for me to do that, in order for you to do that, I got to take some things captive. Got to take it captive. So we've got a choice to make this morning. Are you going to be a conformer or a transformer? I mean, that's your choice. You can let everybody tell you, well, this is the way my family did it all the years there ever was my family. I used to think that kind of stuff. My household doesn't operate the way that my household once operated, because my household operated based on old type of thinking. Reminds me of a quick little story. There's a family get together. And they're cooking in the kitchen. The men are sitting out on the front porch. And this young lady walks into the kitchen, and great-grandma's there, and grandma's there, and mom's in the kitchen. And she says, can I help? Sure, baby, come up in here. You need to learn how to cook now anyway. And so she's sitting there talking, and she says, why did you cut the end off the ham? And great-grandma says, well, go out on the porch and ask my mama. Everybody in the room's, well, I did it because my mama did it. I did it because my mama did it. I did it because my mama did it. She goes out on the front porch and she says, Big Mama, why did you cut the end off the ham? She said, baby, because I never had a pot big enough for the ham. Every generation had been throwing away ham. A lot of us are living our lives that way. we're doing things that we don't know why we're doing them, but they do not line up with the Scripture. And they don't produce the life that God has for us. I'm talking everyday stuff too. Not just, when we're all in His presence like we were a little bit ago. That's easy peasy. I'm talking about Monday when I got a headache and the dog's done put a mess on the floor and I'm running late and the car won't start. What's my walk like then? Well, I ain't got time to worry about my walk. I'll deal with that Wednesday, right? That's what a lot of us are doing. And we're not living in victory. And we're not living in peace and joy and love and the fruit of the Spirit and this hope of eternity and this victory that Jesus bought. I can guarantee you that you can look at most of my life, and if Jesus was living my life, it would not look like that. It wouldn't look like that. Because if somebody said, "Hey, Jesus, can you take the trash out?" Absolutely. My pleasure. Boom. Well, what about the show Jesus was watching? Jesus would say to me and to you, the person who asked the favor is more important than any show on that TV. He'd probably say to me, as a matter of fact, you spend too much time in front of that thing, anything. What you probably should do is turn that off, go in the kitchen, and have a conversation with your wife. Or better yet, ask her, "Is there anything else I can do for you, honey?" He didn't stop preaching and he didn't went to meddling. No, I didn't. No, I didn't. That's preaching. This is what I'm talking about. When your boss says, "Hey, can you fill in for Sally tomorrow?" Sure. That's not the way Jesus would do it, right? I don't think so. This happens, church, not when we roll up our sleeves and say, "We're going to be good boys and girls." No, this happens when I take the time to be in God's presence. And I'm saying, "Lord, take your word. And as Isaiah said, let it accomplish in me what you sent it for. As I'm making my way through the Scriptures, Lord, change me." And right now I'm in John chapter 8, and I see myself like those Pharisees. And that's who I'm identifying with. And I'm not supposed to be able to identify with them. I'm the one holding a stone. She shouldn't have no business. And I'm saying, "Lord, take those thoughts captive. Help me. Transform me, renew my mind. Because I want to be on my knees like you. I don't want to condemn her. Because you love her. You have a plan for her life. And I don't want to be that religious person who runs her away or runs her off. Lord, change me. I don't want to see my brothers and sisters and immediately start going down my little checklist. Oh, yeah. Oh. But we do that. So much of our thinking, from the time we walk into a room full of people, we're thinking about ourselves. Is my hair right? I got a boogie in my nose, and I'm looking at what she's wearing and what Sister Spookenbacher. And we're so wrapped up in those things. And so, I'm telling you the truth this morning. So much of our lives is filled with that kind of stuff. Instead of, "Lord, I'm walking in here today. These are your sons and daughters. Lord, these are those that you shed your blood to redeem. We're going to gather together. We're going to worship together. We're going to pray one for another. You're going to meet us here because you promised where 2 or 3 are gathered together. Lord, I can't wait to see what you do in our lives." And we might not even realize what you're going to do, but at some point, I'm going to have an aha moment and go, "Oh, my. I remember when." And then I'm not going to be able to wait to get back together and say, "Hey, guys, you're not going to believe what the Lord did." Be transformed by the renewing of your mind, that you may prove or test or examine or to declare what is genuine, that good and it's all good. You know, the world stole that phrase from the Lord. It's all good. That is, they're always Johnny-come-lately. Romans 8:28. And we know that all things work together for good. We quote it. We love that verse, don't we? But what about when a dog messed on the floor and I'm running late and the car won't start and I'm already, even that? Is that good? Or when I wake up and I got COVID, is that good? Oh no, not that ain't good. All things that we may proving, right? Prove all things, hold fast that which is good. Approve of those things that are excellent, Philippians says. Proving to everyone that sees, it's good, it's good, it's good, it's good. This morning, my head's spinning. Things didn't go the way that I thought they were going to go, the way that I planned, and I'm sitting up there and I'm asking some of you that are type A to say, all right, I'm going to give Gordon a break, and I ask you to forgive and let it go so we can just worship the Lord, and God shows up. That didn't happen because Gordon had it all together. Oh man, he was on his game. Everybody in the house knows that's not the case today. Prove what is that good. He's working good. And not only is it good, it's acceptable. Oh, when it happens, it just fits. Tailor made. Man. Whew, feels like pajamas. It's acceptable. What is that good, right? We need to decide what is good. Then we need to delight in what is acceptable. And then we need to do the perfect. We need to act it out. That's when life becomes life. The thief cometh not but for to steal, kill, and destroy. I have come that you might have life and that you might have it more abundantly. This is the kind of stuff that you start realizing what Jesus can really do in a person's life. And some people in the church are like, well, you know, Lord forgave my sins way back then when I was living like the devil, but now I'm going to heaven and that's all it's about. No. He wants to do so much in your life. So much in your life. You get all those closets with your insecurities and your fears and your anxieties and your past and the boo-boos and your hurts and the walls that you've built up and all of those things. And Jesus is saying, let me in. No, Lord, if I let you in, then you're not going to like me. And nobody would like me if they really knew who I was. I'm just this mess. I'm just this bundle of, oh. Let me in. I want to change that, Gordon. And you're looking at someone this morning. It's happening to me. It's happening in my life. He's changing my life. And he wants to change your life. But you're going to have to be in his presence. Be in his word. Be in prayer. Not a ritual thing. A real thing. A real thing. What is that good, acceptable, and perfect will of God? Do we really believe he's got a perfect plan for our lives? Some of you do. Some of you are deciding. That's okay. It's still perfect even though you haven't decided it yet. That's the good news about the Lord. It's already in place. But life would be so much more enjoyable if we would fall in to it. Amen? Let's stand.